Hopefully everybody can see that.
Only lemonade to make up the 11. 1 mile and 3/16. Here we go. And the gate.
So we're going to go ahead and skip.
Side is Freedom of Gold. Stephanie's getting Stilly Buttons.
Stephanie's kitten is where my cursor is. Watch my cursor, please.
Seconds, they turn the corner of the Belly D. That's what Tia tried to do it all the way. I'm already sexy. Somali Money. Girl Charlene's been switched out for a clear chance. Just for Judge coming up the inside of one with Street of Gold. They're deep in the final furlong. Here's Girl Charlene. As Brian Mark plays his hand. It's Girl Charlene close to the finish. Girl Charlene. Girl Charlene has won it from Stephanie's kitten.
Ed, did you see that?
No, we're looking at your notes.
You were what?
All we can see are your notes.
Hey, what's going on, Chad? Hey, can you hang on a second? I'm hoping everybody can hear me all right. Ed, can you hear? Hey, Chad, can you say hello? Here, Chad. Ed.
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Dan. The big issue everyone's going through is we're seeing your notes, not the video you showed or any of the numbers.
Shit. Oh, my God. How's that?
That's great.
Sorry, guys, I was on the wrong screen. All right, I have Chad. Chad, how are you?
Good, DC. How are you, buddy?
Good. I'm hoping everybody can hear me, Chad. This is our first podcast. We have like 50 people on the line. And connected via phone, got you via cell phone, but I think it's going to be good enough. Can everybody hear me? Or Ed, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
I can hear you fine.
Can you hear Mr. Brown okay, Ed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Chad, thanks for coming on. This is our first time actually talking in a show format, huh? So
yeah, it's my first time having you. It's my first time you've had me on DC. I don't know who you've had ahead of me, man, but I'm waiting for the call from you.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for joining me. I know you're really busy, and I just wanted to connect with you on a couple things here. We were looking, and the group was talking about the Flower Bowl, and it's interesting to note that you have 3 runners in a race. Kind of curious about what's that like to have 3 horses in one race, and sort of how you deal with that. Each different owner and so on.
Well, when you get to this level, running races, and especially grade 1s, all the horses really earn a shot into the race, regardless of who owns them, how many you have in your barn. We want you to have 1 in a race like the Flower Bowl. Let alone have 3. We're very lucky. And when they get to this point, I just let the horses decide it, out on the racetrack and prepare each one of them the best I can to potentially win the race, and I really have never had any issues with clients. Once you get to that level, I think they understand. They're just lucky to be there, and that if I'm telling them they need to run, then they have a shot to win.
Yeah, right. That's great. I appreciate that. We were kind of curious about that. Going through each of the runners here, can you tell us just in a quick 15 or 20 seconds about what a chance is?
What's the chances is a horse that she hasn't won this year. She's a horse that's always had a lot of talent. From a 2-year-old season when she finished second in the Breeders' Cup, she showed that she's a top-class filly. And since then, it's been a little bit of a rocky road. She showed a couple of glimpses of being a horse that hasn't quite got there. But I think she deserves a shot. She certainly likes Belmont Park, and I think a 1.25 miles would be perfect for her. Definitely this kind, but on her best day, I think.
Thanks. Now, Alterright ran in the Arlington, or the Beverly D, and most of us were surprised that the horse didn't fire. Was it something having to do with the track there, Chad?
No, I don't think so. For her, it's been a mental thing this year. She had such a fabulous campaign and a busy campaign in the fall. I ran her 3 times in 6 weeks last year, ran great. Gave her a break, and when she's come back, both starts in the Diana and the Beverly D. For whatever reason, this filly really came unglued in the paddock on me. And as soon as she got to the track, it was even worse. And just didn't handle either race. And, I just drew a line from home. And then I get to run her Belmont out of her own stall. And on the track, she started to run a grade 1 on. You know, I don't have any excuses for her this time. We've been schooling her a lot the last 2 weeks in the paddock. She's been perfect. So if she behaves, I have no excuse for her. She needs to go over there and win.
Well, yeah, and you know, as we were talking earlier, this is a horse that a couple of us identified as somebody that's probably sitting on a forward move. I thought the last race had a little bit slower pace that you probably like. Now, Stephanie's Kitten is interesting. We just showed the replay over here, how she rallied from like dead last and took just a long stretch drive that seemed to last from the turn all the way. You must have been pleased with that last race.
Well, I was pleased with the effort, but, you know, I was disappointed in the outcome. I thought both in the Beverly and the Diana, she was the best horse in the race and was an unlucky loser. But that's horse racing, in particular, it's turf racing, and it's a lot about the trip, and you can have the best horse and lose a lot for the turf. And the last 2 starts, I feel that's what happened to her. So, you know, that's her running style now, and she's going to come from last, and she's going to have to work a trip out in the stretch. But if she can get a clean trip, she certainly can run them all down.
Curious about going back to Johnny V. What is the difference between Frankie Dettori and Johnny V in terms of running style and sort of how they handle things?
That's hard for me to answer. I don't have that much experience with Frankie Dettori other than I know he's a world-class rider. He's only ridden 2 races for me, and it's these 2 races on Stephanie's Kitten, and I think he rode her great. She had challenging trips, I don't think, due to the ride. In the Diana, she had a very poor post. I think that cost her. She was parked out there the whole way. And in the Beverly D, you know, she just got away really slow and was shuffled the last and did the best he can. I can't really compare them, other than I know they're both world-class jockeys.
Right on. Well, I'm glad we had a chance to talk to you. Chad Brown's joining us on Predicteform's first podcast. Chad, and ask you about a couple of horses a little later on in the afternoon. First off, what color shirt are you going to be wearing? That's the most important thing.
I haven't decided yet. It's not going to depend on the weather.
Are you going white shirt, or do you think you're going pink or purple, or?
Thinking about going dark and maybe throwing a couple accent colors against the dark.
Well, yeah, you got to go dark. It really looks well on camera. I understand that. That's the reason why. It's an interesting entry that Mr. Ramsey has in the Hirsch Classic, going 12 furlongs on the turf. And first, I wanted to ask you about the inner turf and the difference between sort of the inner turf and the regular turf from your perspective. I didn't get a chance to ask it to you earlier.
You know, I don't really have an opinion. I mean, I think both courses ride similar for me. And again, really depends on the weather. If we had a lot of rain today, I think by Saturday it'll probably dry out, and the courses can be a little bit different when you factor wet weather in. You know, these 2 horses ran over this turf course last year in the same race, and both of them ran terrific. So Real Solution actually had a very wide trip and was only beating a length. And Big Blue Kid had a ground-saving trip, and that steady, slightly turned from home that it cost him to win. Either horse could have won last year, but you know, it's a new year. There's different horses in the race. But I know these 2 horses like Belmont, and I know that they're both training very well right now, so I'll have to see what happens.
Now, in terms of the pace, I noticed that Big Blue Kitten had an entry mate last year, Joe's Blazing Aaron, that sort of kept the pace pretty honest.
Correct.
Is there, like, whatever speed there is going to come from the inside? Is Real Solution, I mean, he showed a little bit of braking effort at Arlington. Do you think he's somebody that could be on or closer to the lead?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to use Real Solution as as a pacemaker, but he's certainly a horse that can play a lot closer than Big Blue Kitten. So we'll just have to, play the break and see what happens. They don't have the benefit of the pacemaker this year. However, it seems like there's enough speed in here to keep things honest up front.
Yeah, it's a terrific race. It's actually a terrific card. And before we let you go, I know you have a couple horses in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, Last Gunfighter, and Zevo, who looks like somebody that has earned most of his conditions and belongs in here. What are you feeling about Zevo?
I think Zevo has a huge shot in this race. He's already proven at Belmont he likes the track, and he's already proven at mile and a quarter winning the Suburban here. So he's another one that relies on the pace up front, and it seems like these two horses on the outside are the pace, and hopefully they hook up early and there's an honest pace to run at.
Yeah, no doubt, man, no doubt. Well, we're rooting for you, Chad. We're rooting for you a lot. Thanks for coming on with us. And I'll catch up with you next week. All right, be well. All right, guys. So I wanted to get Chad on, get some insight from his horses. I know people are asking about the pace figures. They want to get back to the pace figures. I want to get back to the pace figures. Let's get back to the pace figures. All right, you should be able to see my pace figures now. Getting a lot of yeses and whoopies about that. Let's go ahead and wrap up the last race. So who are we going to use in the last race? I'm going to lean towards, you heard Chad say what he said about what are your chances. I'm just not convinced that the figures are telling me that he's somebody I can back. We saw I didn't show you Stephanie's Kitten run down the lane, but it was a long, long run down the lane. I didn't feel like Stephanie's Kitten had the explosion or the turn of foot that you need. So neither of those horses are horses that I'm tremendously fond of. I do, however, like Altarite, the 7-horse at 8-1 morning line. There's something to be said about Strathnaver at 4-1. And, in terms of a long shot, there's some level that I think that this 5-horse Starstruck, if there's a chance he can get back to the 80 that he ran, he's somebody to keep an eye on. But in this race, we're going to go ahead and use Altarite as our top pick. We got to pick this up if we want to be done by 8 o'clock. Questions are being fired away at me. All right, moving on. Bossberg, it's a 6-furlong sprint. And it's an interesting, all of these are really good races. I'm going to go ahead and start with Palace. The first thing I want to note about Palace is he's already qualified for the Breeders' Cup. He's already won a Breeders' Cup win in your in-race. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a huge deal, but in this race, the Breeders' Cup, and qualifying for the Breeders' Cup, it gets you an entry fee, which is 2% of the purse, and you get travel allowance. So it's like an extra $75,000 or $100,000 or $120,000, which is a fair amount of money. So to me, other horses we know are going to be really trying to earn it. I'm not saying Palace isn't, but he's already got there. Looking at his last race, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up his PPs here so you can take a look at this. So looking at Palace's last, and then converting back to the speed figures, the pace figures rather, he ran a soft pattern, a 78, and he also ran a 4-figure number of a 76. Going back here historically, if you take a look at his figures, he's run 77, 74. Then he regressed. Then he moved forward. Off a double top, he ran 81. Then he ran 79, 82 here, and then 78. The one pattern that I'm going to notice is this sort of ability to run a faster 4-furlong number and then reverse to a faster final number. Then run a faster 4-furlong number and then reverse. So if you look here, he ran a faster final than he did 4 furlong. Then the other way around, then faster final, then faster final, then faster 4 furlong, then faster final. So the difference between the two is if you run a faster 4 furlong number, typically in dirt racing, it's a game of regression. So you're going to run fast early and you're going to slow down late, where turf racing is the other way around. At 6 furlongs, his ability to stay on or close to the lead is going to be really important. And in this scenario, I would not be surprised again to see Palace being closer, even closer to the lead than he has been. Moving on to Coupe de Grace. This is a very interesting horse. Look, every single race of his lifetime, he's had a pattern. Compression line. This basically means the horse runs a very consistent first race. New pace top. Fastest furlong figure combined with a final figure that's not a top. Next race. New pace top. He moves up from 77.9 to 78. Improves his final number from 69.4 to 74. But this 74 is not a double top, so in other words, it's not 3 points higher than his previous race. This race is, however. He runs his fastest 4 furlong number combined with his fastest final figure. This is what we call a double top. Very often, a double top means regression is coming, right? So we would have said in this race here, Coup de Grace would have regressed. Lo and behold, he didn't. He ran a 79, and he progressed in his final figure to an 82. But you'll notice it's the first time he ran a final number that was faster than his 4 furlong number. What's he going to do the next start out? We look for improvement off a reversal. He runs a consistent and the same 4 furlong number. He regresses back a couple points, but still wins the race. To me, this looks like a horse that worked his ass off, okay? I see all of these races. I see patterns. I see forward moves. I see tops. Then I see regression. 78.4 to 76, that's clear regression to me. I think he's on a negative line, and I think he's going to regress off this number. Zebros, not much to see about Zebros. Can't really see him competing at this level, and he is showing regression. But he does show fast 4 furlong figures, which we're going to come back to. Saludos Amigos is a very interesting horse. First off, I want to note he is the fastest final figure of the group. And this is an interesting catch on the turnback angle. So one of the things I really like about the 6.5 and 7 furlong races is you can look at the 6 furlong figure and you can look at the 2 furlong. So the 6.5 and 7 furlong figures are the only races where you're going to get this, all 4 figures. If you look at the 6 furlong figure, so you look at a horse going 6.5 or 7 furlongs and you look to see how he did at 6 furlongs, this is what we call a turnback number. If the turnback number is competitive with the final figure, he's certainly somebody that we need to take a look at. And as you can see with Saludos Amigos, he's got a 77.2 followed by a 77.4 at 6 furlongs. There really is no reason whatsoever to expect regression from Saludos Amigos. Historically speaking, you see a 79.5, 79, 80, 79. David Jacobson is the trainer. David Jacobson is very, very smart. I'm going to pull up the past performances because there's one thing I want to point out. Look at this work David Jacobson puts in the horse on the 24th. He works the horse at Aqueduct. He works the horse on his home track in 49 and change, 7 out of 13 for the day. So he works the horse 3 days ago very slow. David Jacobson that day, it looks to me like he's just kind of taking the horse out for a workout, but really what he's trying to do is kind of dissuade people. I was noted by one of our viewers that there was a big bias on 8, and it really favored closers as well. So I think that Saludos Amigos is a very sneaky horse in here, and somebody that we're going to keep a close eye on, and at 6-1, he's going to be our top pick in here. So hopefully that gets you guys excited. Is a top pick at 6-1. We're going to go ahead and talk about the next couple of races. I'm going to point out why I think a couple of the favorites are going to regress. Dad's Cap, really the only thing I like about Dad's Cap is Rudy. And I know we like to talk about pace figures a lot, but there's somehow Rudy Rodriguez really does very well at Belmont. If you look at his patterns earlier this year, 78, he ran an 88 with a 77. He ran an 89 4 furlong with a 79. Then he ran a 74 with a 78. To me, that looks like they took the bottom out of the horse. I mean, these are 3 really big races. There's a win, 2 new pace tops, and a soft pattern. This regression was not surprising. He popped up here, but to me, Dad's Cap is looking like he's tailing off. So I'm going to move on to Happy My Way. Happy My Way is 3-1 morning line. Take a look at these 2 new pace tops he ran, 86, 85.6 and 86.8 in 4 furlongs. He ran an 80.5 and an 80.5. Kerry told me, Kerry Photius was the original founder of Equiform, and that was previously what Predicteform was. This is what we call paired up tops. Oftentimes when you see a runner at this level compete and run 2 final numbers that are very close, we're not surprised to see regression, which we did. And he really has taken off in terms of where he was in his earlier career to where he is now. And looking at his 2 furlong numbers, which is really the sprint, and this is where you can find diamonds in the rough, guys. If you're looking at a 6 furlong race, and you can come up with a 2 furlong sprinter, not necessarily in this class, but even in claiming in allowance races, that's got 3 or 4 points on the field at 2 furlongs, and you see them at the board at 10 or 15 to 1, I want you to take a long, hard look. In this race, though, I think Z Brothers is going to be able to give Happy My Way a pretty good run into the first couple furlongs. Look at this 93 back here. Happy My Way got the lead really, really easy last start. And to me, it looks like there's even more speed in this race. And so 3-1, we love that. We love to see speed getting money, especially in a race where it looks like there's some other speed. Happy My Way is not somebody that I'm going to consider. Bringing up the PPs here, and you can see on his PP line, I mean, he bounced to the lead. Durkin was screaming. He bounced to the lead. He sticks with Joe Bravo, and I think he's going to get some competition on the front end, and possibly as well from Private Zone. Private Zone's a very interesting horse. He won this race last year here on 928. He ran an 82.5, which is without a doubt the fastest figure any of these has ever run. But he takes time off after 11:30, and he comes back and he runs a 76 point. So you're asking Private Zone to get back to his earlier form off 1 race. I think that's a big ask here. I think that's a big ask. Looking at his past performances, you can see he ran, he ran this Vosburg, which was that 82. He won it last year. That 82 tuckered him out. He falls in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He came back and ran decently in the Cigar Mile. They put him in a grade 3 on the turf. To me, that reeks of let's just get a race under this horse. I think that's what we need to do. And that's why they put him in at Parks, where the grass is up to your knee. And that's why the way he went 5 furlongs, and that's why they came late. I don't like the spot. To me, it looks like a setup for another race, possibly the Breeders' Cup or an undercard that day. And at, 3.5, 4-1, I think he's a toss. The last horse, Rebo Bobo, really looks to me more like an overnight stake. And if you look on 12:24, I want to show you what I don't like, which is, hang on. This new pace top here, followed by a paired up top. One of the things you can tell about a horse is how they perform off patterns. I like horses that perform well off patterns that they're supposed to, and don't perform well off patterns they're not supposed to. Here's a horse I thought would move forward, and he pairs up. To me, he definitely looks like he's outclassed, and he's not somebody we're going to consider. So in recapping this race, it really looks like there's value with Saludos Amigos at 6-1 morning line. Yeah, and frankly, maybe Palace, but I don't see a whole lot of other horses competing in here, so he's going to be our play at 6-1 in the Vosburg. All right, I need to take a quick breath of air. I'm hoping you guys are all sticking with me. It looks like we still got everybody on the line. We're going to get through the next races in about 20 minutes each. And I think I'm finding my best stride now. Moving on to the Hirsch Classic. It's a 12-furlong affair. And this is the race I spent the most time with. And went back and watched a couple of these races and really spent some time with the Sword Dancer, which both Imagining and Twilight Eclipse came out. Who didn't see the race. Imagining got the lead, and Twilight's Eclipse stalked. And that was because of the post position. You can see the difference here. I think the swapping of the post position is going to change the format of the race. I know Joel likes to go to the lead, but to me, Twilight Eclipse likes to win and can win on the lead. And I would not be surprised to see Twilight Eclipse go to the lead and Joel Rosario stalk. Going back to the pace figures and looking at Twilight Eclipse, this 81.2 is a big step up. It's a 5.5 increase in the final figure, and look at the difference in a 4-furlong figure. So he goes up 12 points at a longer distance. You would not expect a horse to go faster in a 4-furlong figure than you would a 12-furlong race than an 11-furlong race. So it looks like he's on the muscle a little bit here. If I can get myself past this 81.2 being a top, he could be somewhat interesting, but then I'm going to bring up his past performances and tell you that West Point Thoroughbreds overbets the crap out of his horses. As you guys may know, Terry Finley. Terry Finley owns West Point. They have like 25 or 30 owners in this race, or in this horse. That's why every single time the horse goes off is a big favorite. So even if you like Twilight Eclipse, backing him is going to be difficult because you're just not going to get any value. I would also note that as you continue to look forward, if you see West Point Thoroughbreds, just be aware you're not going to get any value. You're not going to find a diamond in the rough with Twilight Eclipse. Imagining is the next runner we're going to talk about. And let's go ahead and start here with his pace low in the Manhattan. So I've got a couple notes about what a pace low is, and I think the easiest thing for people to understand is it's a race where the first part of the race is run very, very slow. So if you see a pace low and the final figure doesn't fit, draw a line through the race. Basically say, give that horse an excuse. However, if you see a pace low where the final figure does fit, that means that runner, regardless of what he looks like on paper in the PPs, was performing well. We were not surprised to see a forward figure and a forward move from this 77 to an 82. Now, this 82 certainly looks like a top in Imagining. I'm going back and I'm looking for anything close to an 82 and I'm not finding it. Whereas at least with Twilight Eclipse, I find an 81.5. So the bottom of Imagining is really his last race. So look at this increase, 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 increase. Horses on turf can do that from time to time, but to me, he's more likely sitting on regression than he would be on forward progress. And at 3-1, and coming out of a big race where he ran very well, I look at this as an opportunity. So I think Imagining is probably going to be regressing. Hangover Kid. First thing, let's take a look at Hangover Kid is the 77-day layoff. You know, that's about as much as you need to know with this horse. Other than this 80, these occasional 80s, and Gulfstream was playing very fast here in the springtime. His numbers aren't fast enough, and he's not somebody we're going to spend much time on. All right. So we're going to come to Big Blue Kitten and Real Solution as a entry. I think we heard what Chad had to say about both of them. Big Blue Kitten won this race last year. Actually, Big Blue Kitten didn't win. Lost by a nose. And I'm going to try to pull up the race here so you can see it, but it was interesting because Durkin actually thought that he won the race. Give me a sec, guys, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the video of this race for you. Big Blue Kitten, 9:28:13. Now you're going to get to see a little multimedia action. I didn't realize I was on the wrong screen with you guys. Nobody wasn't interested. All right, so we want to look at, hang on. All right. Hopefully you guys can see my screen.
They're in the gate.
So we're not going to suffer through the entire race here. Just give me a sec.
And they're off.
So this is...
Joe's blazing around, wasting no.
Well, so let's go back to that race.
Joe's got some good speed, too.
So Joe's Blazing Aaron was the rabbit that I mentioned that Big Blue Kitten had last year in the same race. You heard Chad say that he didn't think Real Solution was going to be that horse. But frankly, I can't imagine why he would be in here if he's not going to try to press what looks like a race with not a lot of speed.
Little Mike is fifth in 1:11:2. Down the backstretch run, Joe Blazing Aaron, 2-length lead. King Creasa has been second throughout here. There's 5 furlongs to go. Imagining Justin behind the lead, Little Mike racing forward about 4 lengths from the front. That's a break of another 2 back to Slumber, who's just on the inside. Twilight Eclipse, break of another 3 back to Natello. And now starting to get on the way is Real Solution.
My cursor is on Real Solution. This is last year's Perth Classic.
Now he's going to try to make his run through on the rail. So the work is over here for Joe Blazing Aaron with 3 furlongs remaining. Here comes Little Mike. Little Mike now to seize the lead as they make their way toward the top of the stretch. It is Little Mike now in front. Real Solution coming with the sweeping move on the outside. Twilight Eclipse is also right there. Then imagining Big Blue Kitten. They're coming into the final furlong. It's Little Mike in front. Real Solution bearing down here from the outside. Slumber's kicking in late. Here comes Slumber with the late run on the outside. Little Mike
on the rail. On the rail. Durkin thinks he gets him.
Blue Kitten coming through on the rail. And Little Mike, hold on. Big Blue Kitten comes through on the inside. It's a photo finish. Did Big Blue Kitten just get up in the final stride?
I sure as shit thought he did. So I wanted to show you guys that and give you an idea about Big Blue Kitten coming into this race. This is a race, and Mr. Ramsey is a very, very competitive guy. He's ran a couple good races here. He clearly is able to run these kinds of numbers. I see an 82.9, and normally I would freak out and say, Jesus, that is just the top beyond tops. But Monmouth, for some reason, from time to time, throws in a high figure. And it's because there are not a lot of races run at that distance on the grass. And so the variant sometimes pushes these numbers higher. I think Big Blue Kitten is sitting on a pretty big race here. And I really hope that Real Solution can do something on the front end to keep these two honest. That's the biggest concern that I have, is that there's not enough pace in the race. Now, I heard Chad say that Real Solution is not going to go to the lead and that he thinks he's his own horse and blah, blah, blah. Now, please don't tell him I said this, but, you know, to me, it looks like that's the reason why Real Solution is in here. Now, he might not even have the speed to go to the lead, but this half of the entry is interesting, very interesting in this race, while Real Solution I just don't think is up to the task, and he's just too erratic. Moving on to main sequence. This is a terrific horse. He already qualified in the Breeders' Cup winning year. And if you guys go back and read the United Nations blog, I'm just going to show you here. If you go to the blog section, and you click on United Nations, and then you click on the race, and you go back down and you look at main sequence here, you can see that we thought main sequence was the price play. It looked like he was coming into the United Nations in good shape. We were not surprised to see him win, and he was a horse that we had at 8-1. I'll take you back to the pace figures now. So I just wonder, based on these numbers and this growth from 75 and change to 82, if he's not sitting on a race that he's going to regress. Now, I don't think he's going to regress a lot, but I don't, he's not a horse that we want to see move forward if he's going to run big in the Breeders' Cup, which we know he's pointing towards, and he's already qualified. So I think this is a spot that he's vulnerable in, and I think he's vulnerable only because this is not the be-all and end-all of the race for him. He's qualified, he's got 2 wins, he comes off the pace, and it'll be interesting to see if Big Blue Kitten can get a jump on main sequence. But given the choice, I am in the camp of Big Blue Kitten in this race. The outside horse, Medal Count, well, we've all seen him. They yank him around in distance. They yank him around. He looks much more like a synthetic horse than he does a grass horse, and he's not somebody we are going to consider in this race. So going through the field, there's really nobody that I want to bet on. But spending a little time and talking about it is always helpful. I think there's 2 horses to consider. I think Big Blue Kitten as part of the entry, and oh God, I'm actually going to say this. I think that maybe Twilight Eclipse from the rail is going to have some value. So if in this race, main sequence goes off as the favorite, the entry goes off as the second favorite, Imagining goes off as the third favorite, maybe Twilight Eclipse will be 4 or 5-1, and that's where your value is. So in terms of exotics, in terms of pick 4s, which we'll go back through, we're going to look at Twilight Eclipse and Real Solution. And main sequence beats us at 8-5 off an 82, so be it. All right, we're heading it down the stretch, and I think what was a awkward and rough beginning has smoothed itself out. I noticed we've steadied out at 40 people on the call from probably 70 that started after I was going through a bunch of nonsense. But the good news is we're in full stride here as we turn for home in the $1 million Jockey Gold Cup. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the PPs on this race just so everybody can get a big peek at it as we start here with micromanage. Certainly this is one of the things that we know Mike Rapoli likes to do is micromanage his stable. These are really erratic figures from a horse that can't compete in a grade 3 level. And I'm going to just pop up the basic view. I don't know if you guys have seen the basic view, but look at this up and down and up and down and up and down. So if you can catch him one day on an up, and he's got a good price, and there's reasons why you would expect forward progress, you should bet micromanage. I just don't. Moving on to Last Gunfighter. So Last Gunfighter is an interesting horse. I had the opportunity to meet John Gunther a couple times, and he is one of these guys that's really committed to the industry. He's a very, very good guy. He wants to be running his horses at the highest level, and he does race after race after race. If you look at Last Gunfighter, he's got a couple good races here, actually 4 or 5 really good races back here. This time last year ran 77, 78, but he's really plateaued off. 74, 74, 74, 74. I'm looking for something to spark me into liking Last Gunfighter. I like John, I like Chad, but I just don't see him stepping back up to one of these races back here. And he hasn't been able to compete at the grade 1 level. He hasn't really done very much lately. He's got Joe Bravo on him. As much as I want to back Last Gunfighter, I can't. Ed says I'm getting a little quieter. All right, I'll have to speak up. Wicked Strong. Wicked Strong. So Wicked Strong's in against older horses for the first time, as are a couple of these. And you can see 5. You can see Micromanage is 4. Wicked Strong is 3. Zevo is 5. So we'll identify the younger horses. Going against older horses is just a difficult thing to do, especially if you do it the first time. And when the pace figures tell you doing something for the first time is a tough thing to do, you have to take notice. Looking at his figures, he ran a solid 77.4 in 10 furlongs. His 4 furlong figure was 71. His 6 furlong figure was a 70. Wicked Strong looks like he is liking the lead better and better. You'll notice there's 2 races he put the blinkers on. We put a B here as a notation of the blinkers. He wears them again this time. Here's somebody that we're going to look to be on up close to the lead. Where he nets out, I want to get through the rest of the field before we make a decision on Wicked Strong. Zevo. You heard Chad talk a little bit about Zevo. Here's what I like about Zevo. And if you go back and you read our analysis from the Woodward, which I'm going to go ahead and pull up right here very quickly for you guys. Under features, you want to go to the blog. You want to go to the Woodward. You can read the individual analysis we had on each of the runners. Here's what we thought about Zevo. Strong closer shortens up to 9 furlongs for his first try in grade 1 competition. He could have value if he can stay above the 5-1 mark, which he did. I don't know if you've seen the My Pace figures yet, but it can easily get you to your pace figures. Click on Belmont. And now we're back to the race. So this soft pattern, a new pace top. So let's just take a gander back here, starting at the beginning of the year. He runs 79 as a 2-year-old. Wow. Comes back, runs 79. Regresses back, which is fine, wins basically a race where he regresses on both the final figure and the 4 furlong figure while winning. So that's okay. He moves forward off the soft pattern, which we would expect. He moves forward, intermediate race to a 79 with a new pace top. He regresses 1 point to a soft pace, while still winning. And then he comes into this race. Now you can see why we liked him last race. He steps into a grade 1 for the first time. And in what looked to be more of a speed favoring track, he wasn't able to close as he would have liked to, as we would have liked him to. But I thought it was a pretty good race, especially given the time off. He comes back into this race off much shorter rest, off 26 days. I'm going to go ahead and expect Zevo to move forward a couple points. I think Zevo can get himself back to this kind of a number here. And really, if you take away these couple races, he can do it. And he's somebody that at a price of 6-1 morning line is very interesting in this race. Zevo going 10 furlongs. You'll see he's got 1 10-furlong race on his pace figures, and he ran a 78. So it might just be that that shorter distance was tough for him. It might have been his first try in grade 1s. But we're going to go ahead and look deep and hard at Zevo. Prayer for Relief reminds me of Last Gunfighter. Another hard-tried horse that runs in grade 1 competition for Mr. Zayat. He has not been able to get out of grade 1 competition. He's not been able to win in graded stakes competition. His only win is in an overnight stake at $75,000. And from a pace figure perspective and a class perspective, he's outclassed. Long River. I thought he was going to run much, much better in the Woodward than he did. And this regression was inexcusable in my mind. And if you look at all of these numbers, 77, 81, 80, 76, 78, regression back to a 70, looks like he's on the wrong pattern. And morning line, it's 30 to 1. There's nothing to like about Long River. Speak Logistics, $80,000 claimer over his head, and he put in a 68 his last race. So that's really, he doesn't belong. I can't even imagine why an owner would want to run in this race. Let's take a look. I don't know, maybe because he's from New York and he wants to race in this race. But yeah, this is a horse that doesn't belong in here. The other thing that's really, I get a little upset in these races. Clearly the horse can't compete here. The owner is going to run him in Jockey Club Gold Cup. I would not be surprised to see this horse run in $20,000 races the next time. It's really a disservice. Gary Contessa's a New York guy. I was thinking he should probably have more sense than to try to run this horse against this field. There's nothing logistical about that. Somebody brought up a question about why not Long River, with the exception of his last race, which is a fair question. And you know, can you look at his last race and can you toss it? Normally, I would say let's find an excuse here. Maybe there's a reason we can. Maybe it's the mile and the eighth. But I was so disappointed in this race, and we supported him in this race, that it's hard for me to imagine he can go back to a 78. He's owned by Godolphin. Godolphin is part of the Sheikh's family, the Sheikh group. I don't think he's tremendously concerned about winning the race. In these kinds of races, I think a horse like this is shooting for black type. Maybe, just maybe, if you want to use him for fourth, possibly, but he's not somebody we're going to go ahead with, unfortunately, on top. That moves me over to Tonalist. And Tonalist, as you guys know, or maybe you didn't know, we like Tonalist to win the Belmont Stakes right here. Going back, and here's the reason why, Tonalist ran a new pace top. He ran a 77. We thought there was forward progress coming off that 77. And while he didn't progress forwardly, his 4 furlong time is the reason why you see a soft pattern there. He did run a 77. These 77s here, the 72, 77.2 and the 77.5, kind of look like what we call paired up tops. So I was not surprised to see the regression in his effort on 726, which was the Jim Dandy. Now, what was disappointing was his last out in the Travers. Ed would tell you that the 1C, 2C numbers here are very big positive numbers, which means that it was speed favoring, yet V.E. Day came from well off the pace. Ed, did I get that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I wouldn't necessarily say speed favoring so much as it was a fast pace and horses closer to a fast pace not to perform as well late. Tonalist and Wicked Strong definitely stayed on. Did not, but it definitely set up for VE Day based on that plus 16. So,
and it's good to hear your voice, Ed. Sorry to bring you in a bit earlier. I've been rambling nonstop. This new pace top here, it's interesting and is exciting, but in a way also it's regression. And I don't quite know what to make of this new pace top. I like the new pace top, but again, Tonalist, and I think it's more about his performance on the track than it was anything else. I thought he should have been a little bit better in his last out. But I let the numbers speak for themselves, and when there's a new pace top, and when we're going to get 4 or 5 to 1, it becomes very interesting. The next runner is Stephen Oat C. And Stephen Oat C hasn't won in over 2 years. He's a non-winners other than here, and another horse that clearly doesn't belong in this field. And disappointing again to see the owners put it in, though I do think somebody sees this Woodward and says, well, that's a decent race, so we're going to go ahead and try our luck. So that's okay with me, and the 75, while not a tremendous number, is okay to see in here. So let's move on to VE Day. VE Day's first time against Older. And Ed, how much first time?
What was your question, Dan?
How much weight you put on horses running against Olders for the first time?
There's so many schools of thought. I think this late in the year, you still get a little bit of the weight break, so that helps a bit. But with the first time, just the pace is always a little faster. There's just different dynamics. The example I come up with isn't even running against Older for the first time, but sort of what Zenyatta faced in the Classic in 2010. Against Open Company at a Classic distance. She was further out. That's the big issue here is the pace dynamics. It's definitely the major leagues. And a horse like VE Day, even if there's a fast pace, he just might be too far out of it in a race like this. So it is a concern, but, we see from your figures that, he can contend. It's just a matter of getting in the right spot and not being too far back, because that would hurt him in here.
His last race in the Travers, if you go back again and you can read the Travers up top where I showed you guys under the blog, and we'll just take a quick pop there to the blog, and we'll bring up the Travers. Is that not the Travers? VE Day. So VE Day was our long shot pick at 15-1 morning line. We thought the stretch out plus the addition of Saratoga's leading jockey Javier made him worth a look underneath. He actually won. He, as you guys know, he paid 20-1 to win. This is a hard thing for a player to do, is knock a horse down at 20-1 and get back on him at a price that's probably going to be a quarter of that. And that is almost enough for me to not want to land on him on top. Now, you do see that Javier stays with him. He did run a really good race, and I think he's somebody that you're going to have to consider in here. So moving on to Marino, and then we'll wrap up here. Marino moves back out to 10 furlongs. He's got a couple races at 10 furlongs, which weren't his best. His better numbers are a little bit shorter. We know Marino likes the front end at his 4 furlong and 6 furlong figures show. I think Marino is another that's going to show and guarantee that there's going to be a strong early pace. And if we go back through the field and we look at horses that are going to be on or close to the lead, we talked about Wicked Strong. Here are the 71, 74. We talked about Tonalist. We talked about Marino. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up the last horse so we can take a look at his PPs, and this Big Casanova. Big Casanova's got 2 wins on the lead here. For some reason, he likes Delmar, and that he does show a couple of good races here at Santa Anita. But I want to take a closer look at his pace figures. This line is interesting to me. I don't know why. I'm smacking myself in the head looking at this line, but let's take a deeper look. So he runs 75 first out on the turf. He runs a turf decline line, which means he regresses significantly in his 4 furlong figure while maintaining a consistent final figure. He goes to dirt. He improves from turf decline to dirt, which we would expect, and that win is not surprising. Compression line means he runs almost the same 4 furlong figure and final figure. Very good sign. Off the compression line, he runs a reversal. Reversal means it's the first time that his final figure is faster than the 4 furlong figure. So far in Big Casanova's life, he's done everything well, or at least his racing career in the U.S. Let's go to his racing career in the U.S. He runs a reversal. His next out, he runs a double top. He runs his fastest final figure while putting in his fastest 4 furlong figure. Off the double top, there is no question regression is coming. I mean, just no question regression is coming, especially off this increase here. He regresses to 75, and his 4 furlong number is 67. So there's big regression in that 4 furlong number. I would not be surprised to see Big Casanova step up from that 75. I would not be surprised to see Big Casanova make a forward move off that 75. Now, he does draw the outside, and as you know, if you can look at the race, they start on the turn. But in the case where they start on the turn, as Chad mentioned, or maybe he didn't mention on the phone, but clearly the outside has some select advantage. He, at best, is going to force an honest pace in here. So whether you look at Marino, whether you look at Tonalist, whether you look at Wicked Strong, there is enough speed in here to keep the pace honest, which makes me think that stalkers or even somebody coming from behind is going to be set up in a race like this. And it brings me back to Zevo, a little bit to VE Day, but I think it really brings me back to Zevo. I like Zevo's numbers here. I like the fact that he has some regression. He did take a breath after winning how many races in a row, but his regression is not off the charts. I can see him moving forward. While VE Day, I think, is more likely to, off these numbers, 69, 74, 72, 75, 73, 77, I think he's more likely to regress. So for me, I'm going to lean a little bit more towards Zevo, and we're going to use Tonalist as well, coming off a new pace stop in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. I tried to really focus in on the late pick 4. I'm going to grab Ed back on the line, and we're going to go ahead and roll through the late pick 4 and put our tickets together.
You're still on the phone.
Hey, are you there?
I am.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and so we're going to go ahead and go back through the races. I think maybe a couple people might have missed the 7th race if we started a little bit early. Go ahead and chime in and give some of the a couple of the top picks in each race, and maybe you can feel free to hop in as well.
Yeah, the 7th was definitely the one where we had those hiccups to begin with. A quick review of who you like there would probably help to kick off the pick 4. And I know I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on It's My Lucky Day, and then across the country, Share Belief, who as of right now is the classic favorite.
Yeah, as long as everybody doesn't mind sticking on, we can do that. So
yeah, and I would say go ahead and go back into presentation mode. It's just too much static for you and I to talk.
All right, sounds good.
Where's the room?
All right, in this race, we identified. I'll bring myself back up. I forget that there's this nifty feature where we can hop back up to the 7th race. So in the 7th race, which is the Flower Bowl, 10 furlongs on the turf for fillies and mares, there were a couple horses we identified. Vivo Raphael could possibly be one of the breakaway early speed horses, but really, we talked about Strathnaver. We talked about Chad's Alt-Right as our top pick. We did mention, and I did mention Starstruck at 20 to 1. And we go back to Stephanie's Kitten. I think Stephanie's Kitten is going to be. And you heard Chad, maybe you didn't hear him. He should have won, and Chad thought he was going to win both of his last. I'm not excited about hopping back on what's going to be likely a big favorite, the first leg of a pick 4. Now, maybe you guys want to use them. Maybe you see there's value, but again, here at 3 to 1, then a 2 to 1, I think he's going to be shorter than 2 to 1. So consider, but he's probably not going to be somebody we're going to use in a pick 4 sequence. Okay, moving on to the Vosburg. See that? Moving on to the Vosburg. Salutos Amigos was our top pick in here. Very interesting horse. We especially like these turnback numbers as a reminder. 6.5 and 7 furlong races. You get each of the 4 figures. You get the 2 furlong, the 4 furlong, the 6 furlong, and the final. You take a look at Salutos Amigos. Look at his last race. He ran 78. Then he accelerated to 81. Then he decelerated to 77. Then he accelerated to the final 71. This is a horse who's really showing that he can regulate his speed better, and he looks to be coming into the race in prime condition. And I think that Salutos Amigos could run an 80. And David Jacobson is very smart. I'd watch out that last work was a little bit slower, and hopefully that's Jacobson's effort of dissuading people to back the horse. Again, let's look at this race. His race 2 back on July 5th, runs 77, goes faster 75, goes faster 77, goes faster 80. To me, Salutos Amigos is probably sitting on a forward move, and of the 4 races, I think he's going to be my strongest play here. The other one who is interesting is probably Palace. He's going to be a big favorite, but his soft win and some of his higher figures make him tough to toss. Okay. Moving on to the Hirsch Classic. This is the race that I was struggling, and by the time we were done with it, we got it back. I think Twilight Eclipse is going to get the lead. I think Twilight Eclipse can probably hold off Imagining. These pace figures are on the front end. This 81 does show the horse has some get up and go. We're going to use Twilight Eclipse and Big Blue Kitten in this race. We are not going to use Main Sequence, figuring Main Sequence may regress in advance to the Breeders' Cup, so there could be a little bit of value there. And then into the last race, which is the Jockey Club Gold Cup at 10 furlongs. If we want to spread a little bit in this last race, go ahead. I think of the horses you're going to have to use, possibly Wicked. If you're going thinner in the first couple races and you want to spread a little bit, Zevo is going to be the top pick. Tonalist is going to be the second choice. And I think, possibly looking at Wicked Strong, VE Day as 3rd and 4th choices are worth it. So I'm hoping, guys, that gives you a sense of what the pace figures say. This was a pretty rough go the first time, but I think we've smoothed it out. We'll be definitely better our next time as we have the technical difficulties sorted out, and I'll have somebody else to bounce ideas off of, because I've been freewheeling, streaming for the last hour. And if you guys have any questions, well, first off, a couple things. If you have any questions, send in a support ticket, and I'll answer it directly. I think that from a pace figure perspective, ask us anything you want. Right now, you can buy the pace figures for Belmont. You get Santa Anita for free. The Keeneland meet is discounted 50%. Guys, remember, Keeneland goes back to dirt. I really think this is going to be a big advantage for the pace figures. So keep an eye on Keeneland. We are going to do this again. We're going to do this again for the Breeders' Cup. And I'm going to be prepared, but I'm also going to have the tech side down. There's been some questions about wanting to look at a few other races. Ed, are we going to go ahead and take a look at the Awesome again? You guys want to do that?
Yeah, I certainly would love to hear your thoughts. I mean,
let's do it the Awesome again. Yes, somebody just sent a message that said, Awesome again. The favorite shared belief is the nuts. It's very, very succinct. I'm getting to the pace figures now. Hopefully you guys are... There we go. Wait a minute. Here we go. All right. Awesome again. Hold on. Awesome again. Here we go. All right. Let's go ahead and try to pull up the PPs. The wonderful Brisnet PPs. Ed, what do you think he's going to go off at?
I think he'll be 3 to 5.
3 to 5. All right, gang. We're golden. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And I haven't even looked at the morning line of these yet. I've been so focused on Belmont that maybe you can just pipe in as we kind of get through them. Ted Diz, this is just, look at this layoff here. Big layoff. Comes back 78, comes back 77. Eek. It's not bad, actually. I would have expected, especially off this 81, and then this race here, that we would have seen, this new pace top, that we would have seen a number much worse than this. But it's not a bad number. Ed, what's his odds?
Question?
Well, what's Fed Biz's odds?
I'd say it'd probably be 4 to 1.
Yeah. Are you just winging this? Well, what's his morning line? All right, well, we wait for that. This is interesting. Off a long layoff, coming back this strong and putting two good races in together with a positive move here in the 4 furlong number, a positive move here in the 6 furlong number. He is stretching out to 9 furlongs, but he does have an 82 at 9 furlongs, albeit it is on the turf. He's an interesting horse. I'm not going to get thrilled about him, but probably somebody to look at. Sky Kingdom, yeah, does not belong. Erratic. Birdhouse. So what about a reversal here? A reversal is interesting. A reversal indicates potential forward progress. What I'm not crazy about is the fact that he's coming out of a claiming race, a really cheap race here. Let me bring this up for you guys to see. And he's just getting through his conditions in an allowance race. He broke his maiden at Gulfstream, and while his figures and his reversal is a good move, it looks like he's totally outclassed. All right, let's get to shared belief. Shared belief. Let's dissect this mother. First out runs a compression line. When you see a horse run a compression line first out, that's really something. Compression line means a faster final figure than a 4 furlong figure. Very hard to do. Then he comes back, runs a 75, 73, runs a 74, 72, 71, 68. You can see all of these four final figures are just kind of meandering, while these four furlong figures are regressing, right? So then he says, okay, let's get serious. He runs in the Los Alamitos Derby against Candy Boy and a couple other real horses, and he puts it in 80. 79.9. Practically an 80. Wow. Runs away, wins by 4. Obviously the favorite, not surprising he's the favorite. What does he do the next out? Runs a 79.8. He runs as fast as 4 furlong figure. So it looks to me like he does as much as he needs to do to win. And I can hear Kerry on my shoulder telling me that, yes, these are paired up tops, but they may be paired up tops that are very faster than anybody else. So let's keep going through the race, but at this point, even if he regresses 1.5 points to a 78, I'm not sure there's anybody else in here that can compete. Footbridge, meh. 74, 75, 74, 75. Not much. Nothing that gets me, there's not a thing in here that gets me excited about betting this horse in a grade 1. Nothing. 0. Majestic Harbor was beaten. Shared Belief beat the snot out of Majestic Harbor. He did run a 77, ran a 76, 74, 73, 73, 72, 75. To me, this is a crescendo up. Even if there's forward progress, I'm not sure that we're going to get to a 78 or 79. Mystery Train. Mystery Train runs a lot of races in Argentina. He has one race here. He runs a plunge line. A plunge line running in a grade 1 basically says you need to run for the door. Don't walk to the door, run to the door. A plunge line is the kind of line you want to look for in maiden claiming races. And that's really it. When a horse runs from a maiden special weight to a maiden claiming, and you see a plunge line and you see good odds, jump on board. In a grade 1 against potentially the best horse in the country, you run for the hills. Imperative is the outside horse. Again, he's got an 83 back here on 419, but this was run at Charleston. The reason there is an 83 is looking at the variant, there are just not a lot of 9 furlong races that go at Charleston. He gets back to a 73, which seems more like his level. He moved forward to a 78, closing and picking up the pieces in a race that Shared Belief ran away with. So you can see why, going back to you can see why Big Casanova, a West Coast horse, dodged this race, and he could have easily been slotted into running this race, but he wasn't. I do not think that there's any beating Shared Belief. There's also no betting on Shared Belief. And Jim Rome and his gang are looking to take a very soft road into the big race. I'm going to go ahead and pull something up that I find interesting about. All right, here we go. All right, check this out. So this is the Breeders' Cup Classic win odds right now in the Wynn Hotel that I got from my friend John Avello. And look at Shared Belief. 2-1. 2-1. Now, 2-1. Can you imagine going in and laying 2-1 right now that he's going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic? Yes, I know Game On Dude's no longer running. This is a couple days old, so don't worry about it. Where is the value? Since we're on the topic, we're talking about the Jockey Gold Cup. We're talking about the Awesome Again. We're talking about the big race. Is there anybody that stands out now that we think has value? I heard from one listener on the line that possibly California Chrome has value at 6-1. He's certainly going to be a lot higher than that. Wicked Strong is brought up. If Strong is 10-1, it could be interesting. VE Day is at 30-1. If we expect regression in this race, could we expect forward progress? Tonalist is another one at 14-1. Expecting forward move. Would we expect forward progress? I don't know about Tapiture. Tapiture is an interesting horse because he got beat pretty good last time, but I still think he's in form. And could be value there at 75-1. How about Bayern at 35-1? Rest assured he's not 35-1 right now, but there's value with Bayern. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention and show everybody what it looks like and imagining what it would be like if you wanted to get down on the Breeders' Cup Classic. Ed mentions Toast of New York. I'm not so sure about Toast of New York either. But while we're on the topic, and I'll give you a little bit of insight into the Breeders' Cup and a horse that I think can beat Wise Dan. Ed, we're really off topic. Is it okay? I hope you don't mind.
I don't mind.
But this Seek Again is a tremendous horse, and I'm pretty sure that he's going to face off against Wise Dan. I'm going to go ahead and pull up, and I'm going to show you Seek Again's PPs or hang on a second, gang. I want to show you Seek Again's. Here's Stratnaver's lifetime PPs for you guys to look at. Well, I can't seem to find them. Oh, here it is. Here we go. So I was able to pull, we have this back-end tool where we can pull horses. It takes a really long while to query the database, but I queried the database so people could take a look at what I see at Seek Again. You look at this horse here, and you know there's races before these, obviously, but this is a horse that's really coming into form at the right time. Runs a 77 turf decline line. Ran an 82 his last out, and for those of you who didn't see his last race, Seek Again was full of run. I'm going to go ahead and go on record now that Seek Again is going to win a Breeders' Cup race. I'm hoping he comes in against Wise Dan because we are going to have value at this level. We'll see again where Seek Again goes. All right, gang, I think that's going to do it for me. I am completely and utterly spent and talked out. I hope you have enjoyed this. I'm going to bring up the website one more time and just show you a couple things that you need to know. And once you subscribe, you can go to My Pace Figures to get all your pace figures here. It's a lot easier than going to Pace Figures. Go to the Features tab and read the blogs. There is a blog with race analysis at every single major stakes race. So if you wanted to know what we heard about these races earlier, you can find it all here. For example, here's the Woodbine Mile. And there's a couple very pertinent races like the Woodward, like the Traverse Stakes, like the Arlington Million, like the Whitney, like the Haskell, etc., etc. One of the things that I like a lot about the site, and I want to encourage you guys to use, well, there's a couple things. Let's look at the win pattern page. For those who haven't seen it, you can go and put in the date, and you can find out all the win patterns, which win patterns are winning. So this is the win patterns for the week. We can sort this by track. We can sort it by the surface. We can sort it by the distance. We can sort it by the pattern, and we can sort it by the morning line odds. So you'll notice here that there was a compression line, a reversal, and two new pace tops. One at Belmont, that's interesting, new pace top that paid over, that was 10-1 morning line. So you can screw around this and really get an idea of how horses are performing that are winning races. Also take a look at the results page. Ever curious about how your horse performed what figure he ran or she ran immediately after the race. If you go to the race results page, you click on the track, and then you go right to the track, you can see the final figure for just the winner. So anytime you want to know how a horse did immediately, it'll take a day, but you'll be able to pull up the final figures. Now, we don't put the final figures for all the horses, but if you have a horse you want to know the figure, just ask me. When somebody asked why so many double top win more than their fair share races, is a very good question. Double tops with younger horses are not as relevant. So if you see a horse as a young horse, a couple races in, 3 years in, maybe a first or second start into a 4 or 5-year-old racing career, a horse is allowed to throw in a monster race and come back and pair up. So a double top really should be negative if he's coming off a positive pattern. A horse runs a positive pattern or a standalone double top. But when you see a double top early in a horse's career, horses can fire off a double top. And I think for those who look at the paper, notice that happens. I have my window and message open. If there are any other topics or any other questions that people have, feel free to ask them again. But I think short of any other questions coming in, we're good. Well, okay, somebody asked me again who we're on in the 7th race. So I guess we're going to have to take a look one more time at the 7th race. I think I might change my pick by now. All right. 7th race, we like Chad Brown, and we like Alterate. We're going to excuse the pace low. He's got a 79, which is the fastest figure here. 76 is manageable here in his early career. I think Alterate can move forward off that, and I think that there's a potential for a positive move. Obviously, Stephanie's Kitten is going to be the morning line favorite, and there was something to be said about Viva Raphael. Graf Neighbor and Starstruck as a bomb. But again, Alterate would be our top pick in the race. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining the Predicteform first annual webinar. I think we did a decent job getting through it. Rest assured, send me emails, let me know how we did. I apologize for the rough go, and Ed wasn't able to be on. But we are going to be on and fired up over the course of the next couple of weeks. Ed's going to post this up so people can listen to it. Our next Predicteform seminar is going to be on Breeders' Cup Thursday. Breeders' Cup Thursday. We are going to try to get through all of the Breeders' Cup races. I can't believe I'm saying that. It's not going to be as details, but we are going to crush the cup. Let's start by kicking the shit out of Belmont Park and knocking the teeth out of Martin Panzia and the rest of the New York guys that run that joint like Chris K. And let's see if we can't take down some good pools. I want every Predicteform player to win. You guys are what makes the site tick, and I wish you all the best. And go get them this weekend. Take care and peace.
Like it went 7 minutes, then.